You know, it helps if I have a fully charged battery in my GoPro. All right, so the reason I say that's because I actually got through the first few minutes of this video, and then the GoPro died. Anywho, let's continue with this botched intro to this video. I don't do scripts for these. So, a little over a year ago, I started getting into the sport of combat robotics, and my first robot was a Viper kit from Fingertech Robotics with the lifter arm. Fun little robot. I do recommend that kit if you are just wanting to kind of test the waters. You know, if this is a sport that interests you or not. It has its weaknesses, and you'll probably want to put some upgrades into it. And if you really threw some time into it, you could probably make a very competitive robot out of it. But it wasn't really doing it for me. I also had this little fairy weight 150-gram robot that I found on Thingiverse and built. And I am in the process of designing my own beetle weight right now. I'm learning Fusion 360, so I'll have my own beetle weight. But a few months ago, Robert from Vegas Combat Robotics, he said, "Would anyone want to, work on some robots together?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll help. Do what I can." And he basically has been designing and throwing parts at me for this robot right here. This is Offbeat. This is actually our first version of Offbeat. This is a 3-pound undercutter. I had a big weapon on here, but it's packed away right now, so I'm not going to dig it out. And we use these gear drives. The gears, yeah, they didn't work too well. I have a whole other video talking about that that I'm going to put together here at some point, talking about kind of the history, the progress of Offbeat this year. But this was the first version. It went to July Arizona Combat Robotics Robot Rumble, and it did okay. It got eliminated. It was a double elimination bracket, and it got eliminated. But it was a good starting point. And one of the things interesting about this version of Offbeat is we actually have magnets embedded in our wheels, and we had magnetic wheels in all 4 wheels. But it has no armor. It was all weapon, and when the weapon stops working, the robot stops working. That was the first version. Then back in November, I did Titanic Takedown, and here's what's left of the second version. This has some upgrades, and I talk about it in another video that will be coming out after this one, or before this one, I don't know. Maybe I already put it out. Time is weird. Obviously, this one did not fare very well in its competitions, but again, it was a good learning point. We tried some different materials, we had some different components on here, we tried a new design with the frame, we iterated on we found what didn't work on the first version and fixed a lot of that. And that brings us to this third version here. Now, this one is fought, you can tell. And again, if you watch my other video on this, I go over the upgrades and everything about what went into this robot. For clarification's sake, there is no battery in this robot, so it will not activate. The belt is not connected, so there's no worry about the weapon spinning up on me. Normally, I would have all of this taken off, but for just the sake of the video, I have it all on. So let's talk about the previous video I talked about, or the other video I talked about the upgrades we did to this robot. I want to talk about the fights that this robot had. Our first fight was against Wumbo. And according to robotcombatevents.com, it is ranked 36. How high that is, I don't know. It might be 36 of 37 robots. It might be 36 of 300 robots. At any rate, it is ranked 36. It is a big, if you're not familiar with what Wumbo is, it is a big overhead, not overhead, but a big horizontal spinner. It's a big wheel spinner. Big wheel being, it has the big tall wheels, just like Huge on Battlebots. But instead of having a vertical spinner like what Huge has, it has a horizontal spinner that has teeth that are angled down. And the whole idea is it drives on top of you and shreds belts, wheels, whatever it can get on top. So obviously in that fight, we started out upside down to protect the belt. There will be a link in the description where you can watch all of the fights and the fight recaps and everything, or all the fights on the live stream, and they will be eventually put up onto a YouTube in a much higher quality than what the live stream is doing. But in that fight, we only lost this wheel. This wheel fell off. I obviously put a new wheel on, but this wheel was destroyed. The belt broke. But here's one of the things about Offbeat. It has 4 wheels. It has 4-wheel drive. If I lose one wheel, I have 3 wheels and 3-wheel drive. Wumbo lost a wheel, and it looks more like in the video, and I'll have a timestamp for it as well. In the video, if you watch, it's not so much that my weapon ripped that wheel off, it was just me driving so hard into Wumbo and Wumbo driving so hard into me, it just broke that motor mount. Actually, it broke the whole motor and the shaft came out. And then Wumbo also was smoking motors. In terms of damage, though, on our aluminum, everything on the robot still worked. Even the weapon still worked. Although the weapon belt broke, the weapon motor still functioned. And the only thing I had to do, really, was replace this one wheel. Wumbo did take a nice, healthy chunk, a nice big chunk right there out of our aluminum armor, and put 2 little nicks right here. You actually can't see one of them because it is underneath another nick. There's actually 2 right here that are from 2 different robots. So yeah, won that fight judge's decision. I was like, oh, like, it was kind of obvious that I had won that fight, but it was also, like, it could have gone either way. Both robots were showing aggression. Both robots were doing damage. I just happened to have more control for half that fight, I guess. So my second fight, now, the thing with the Sensei Slugfest, or not Slugfest, street fights, it was a very small event. There were only 3 beetle weights. So no matter what, I was guaranteed 3rd place. Unless a 3rd beetle weight, like, materialized out of thin air. There was actually 4. The 4th one was not able to get running in time, so... So our second fight was against Sandstorm, who's ranked 33. Now, Sandstorm is a 2-wheel drive vertical double disc spinner. Double disc being it has 2, they're mounted on the same axle and everything. Kind of like a Witch Doctor's double disc or Jackpot or even Hypershock, how it has 1 vertical spinner, but it's got 2 blades on it. Which, that again is another long-time robot. That's level 5, Jeremy with level 5 robotics. He is from Team Uppercut. That robot, Sandstorm, is a long-time competitor in this region and is a tough robot. So I fought Sandstorm, and I didn't think that fight was going to go well. I was like, you know what, I don't think I stand much of a chance. He had a nice wedge on the front underneath. And if you're watching the fight, there's a moment we're sitting there and we're just squared up and I'm doing this because I got my weapon spinning at full power and I'm waiting, just kind of like, how am I gonna do this? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I think to myself, you know, I just gotta hit him. I just gotta go in. And my undercutter went under his weapon so it couldn't get to him and hit his wedge that he had put on there specifically to deflect this. And we made several exchanges like that, and both robots would go flying across the arena, and he did all of this chewing up. And at one point in our first fight, he got me up into the wall. And here's the wall, and I'm like this, and I'm like, oh no, I don't have armor right here, and my battery is right there. And he's chewing this up, peeled this whole piece of metal up. I didn't get my wheels, luckily, but he was chewing this up. He removed my warranty sticker. My warranty is now void. But I was able to, you know, get out of the corner and get my weapon back up and running and get back into being aggressive. There was a couple times where he was on the offense, I was on the offense. It was a great fight. I don't know. It's hard to tell in the video if I did enough damage to his robot that his wheel fell off because of the damage I did. I don't know if because his wheel ended up falling off. I don't know if it was damage, it fell off because of damage that I caused. I don't know if it just fell off because we were hitting each other so hard and sending each other across the arena that it just broke. But his wheel fell off. And then that's when I started to capitalize, and I kept trying to go for that other wheel. but he's a good driver. He can really use his gyro and one wheel, and he was, crab walking, keeping that robot pointed at me, and I ended up ripping off his whole front wedge and flipping his robot over. And he taps out. I see him tap the glass as I'm lining up for another hit. And as he taps the glass, I do the, like, his robot's here, and I'm like, all right, going in for this. Oh, he's tapping. Like, I turn away. He's like, the fight's over. I just won. I won by tap out. And something that combat robotics people like to do when they damage somebody's robot and you break a part off and then the part's no longer usable is they give out a piece of their robot that you broke off. And I broke off this little mounting bracket that held down his wedge. This is the first part that I have actually broken off of somebody. And that was the first time I've gotten a victory on a robot through a tap out. So my first win with, it wasn't my first win overall with Offbeat. I have had some grudge match wins, but this was the first win. Like, Wumbo was the first competitive win. Like, we were competing, and that was a judge's decision win. Fighting Sandstorm for the first time, because I fought him twice. That was the first win by not knockout, but tap out. So about an hour or so later, we're back ready to go in. It's going to be, again, Sandstorm and Offbeat. And this was kind of like Sandstorm was ready to go. I'm ready to go. We get in there. We have some good couple of hits. At one point, both robots are sent flying. I'm sitting. I watch my robot hit the corner of the glass and drop to the floor, and I think, this is it. My robot's done. That was a big enough hit. The weapon is probably broken. The wheels are probably broken. The frame's probably snapped in half. And when this robot stops bouncing around, it's not going to function. And I twitch the sticks, and the robot goes, yes, I'm ready to fight some more. Everything is still going. And then he gets one more big hit on me, and I go flying. I almost hit the ceiling. And I think, that's it. That was the hit that just ripped the guts of my robot out. Offbeat lands, and I'm like, I'm still functioning. So I go in for another hit. He's pinned up against the wall. I'm kind of sitting there like, oh, we're still functional. I explain it this way. If you've ever ridden a bicycle or skateboard or rollerblades and there's that moment where you have like a big fall and you're just kind of laying there, before you start getting up, and you're like, is my arm broken? Is my leg broken? Like, what's broken? What's hurt? You're just kind of like, well, my fingers still move. My toes still move. I'm good. That was after every hit. I'm sitting there like, what's broken on the robot? Nothing. Okay, go back into it. I got another really good hit on him, and we kind of had a little bit of exchange, and then he kind of Sandstorm just slides over to the corner after one of the hits and is not moving. And I'm in the video, I drive up, and I'm right there. I'm about ready to shred his wheel. I had been going for his wheels all night through this fight. It was weapon on weapon, but my target was hit him, spin him into a position, get him compromised where I can get to his wheel. And I'm right there. I can hit that wheel, but his robot's not moving. And I don't feel comfortable hitting a robot that isn't moving. I feel like, obviously, if he had been dominating that fight, and if I thought there was a possibility his robot might come back to life, go in for that hit and at least do a little more damage. And if this was also a higher level competition, but it wasn't. It was just some guys in a parking lot fighting robots. So I lined up, and I'm like, I don't think he's functional. So I shut my weapon off, and I actually nudge him around, thinking, just to kind of show that I have a little bit of, I still have control of this fight, and my robot's still functional, but also in the hopes that maybe something got knocked loose, and me nudging him around will unknock that loose. And that didn't help. So then I drive around, like, showing to the judges, my robot's still functional. I then see I see Jeremy walk over the other side of the box. He starts power cycling his transmitter, and I think, well, maybe he just needs to power cycle his transmitter, and it's going to reconnect, and his robot's going to come back to life. So I drive up, spin my weapon up, and I'm like, yeah, you can come back to life. I'm right here. I will immediately engage you. If your robot even so much as twitches, I'm going to hit you. But I didn't. I don't like hitting a good robot like that, a good fighter, a good driver, good builder. I'm not going to mess up his robot more than I need to. And sure enough, I got the win by knockout. And I was like, I just got the win by knockout. Like I said, there was only 3 robots in this competition, so I was guaranteed 3rd place. I was not expecting to take first place. I was not expecting first place. This is the trophy that it gave us. They had to come with different little anime themed, silly, goofy trophies. I think it's cool. I was not expecting to win first place. And Offbeat is still, I would say it's about 70% functional. I have to replace the wheels right here. At one point I was really pushing Sandstorm around, and you can kind of see some of these gears are a little chewed up. In fact, this wheel is free spinning because it's no longer properly engaging. And then I've got another big chunk taken out right here. So there's a point where if you get this at just the right position, my drive gear right there no longer meshes with my wheels, and I lose this side of my drive. On top of that, this side of my drive, I'm pretty sure this motor is toast, and I keep having intermittent shutdown of that motor. It just sits there and buzzes, making a weird noise. So I may have a bad electrical connection, or more likely that motor's just, it's done. Really, the frame took very minimal damage. We have a little bit of cracking here, and there is some cracking up underneath this plate. If I took this top plate off, which I'm not going to do for this video because it's a lot of work. I have to take the whole weapon assembly off to do that. But the frame is a little just folded in. This is nylon, so it's a little flexible, but it is folded in from some of these hits. I want to replace all the wheels. Probably maybe this axle here because it looks bent. And obviously put a new front plate on. This top plate, I could probably do a couple more fights with this top plate, really. The bottom plate, we had some issues. What ends up happening when we put the belt on, there's enough torquing motion with the belt and the bearings that the weapon actually leans to one side. It leans the opposite side. It leans over here. So what's happening is this part is actually coming down and hitting the frame. And what was happening is it was catching on the sheet metal here, and that's why this is ripped off right here. It's not because damage we suffered during a fight. It's my own weapon was chewing on my robot, and I had to kind of grind that down. And you might think, well, just put a spacer between your weapon and that piece of metal and move it further away. The problem is if I do that, these 4 screws here, or 3 screws, I'm sorry, 3 screws here, are now sitting on the ground. So if we had flatter screws and countersunk holes, that might be a option. And I think that might be the next upgrade for Offbeat is same weapon, just get my countersink out and countersink these 3 holes and get some countersunk screws and put them there, and then put a washer in the bottom of the between there just to give us a little more space. I think that might be the only real upgrade that I'm going to do. I'm going to reconfigure my magnets. I was at weight, so I couldn't put any more magnets in, so I only put magnets in the front wheels. The idea being that the center of mass of this robot is right here. So I want the magnets gripping right here. What was happening is my back end kept coming up like this, kept doing this a lot, and it kept spinning around. So I think I might do is take half the magnets out of the front wheels and put them in the back wheels. That'll keep me within weight and still give me more distribution of that magnetic downforce. We also were talking about maybe doing carbon fiber for this bottom plate. I kind of like the metal, it just looks cooler. The carbon fiber though is lighter, and one problem we did have during the Wumbo fight, he ripped a big chunk out here and it folded up and over and prevented my weapon from spinning. And my solution was I just had to get into a position where the weapon could get up to speed, and just going from here to here was fast enough that it was able to grind that piece off and repair itself in the middle of the fight and get the weapon back up and spinning. But it was not happy. That piece was not happy. One other thing you may notice, our asymmetric weapon, this arm, this is actually the main part that hits. Like, this has very little indication that these ones were hitting. There's a little marring right here from getting, spinning. This one I think is actually there's a little nick here, but I think that because it spun in this direction, so that was probably at one point when Sandstorm had my weapon down. Because when I get pushed up at the wall, weapon can't spin. But yeah, almost all of our hits were with this part, and you can see this is really rounded off. So we need a new weapon. This was a little too thin, I think, and we actually bent it. And part of that bending comes from the few times where I hit the wall, and a lot of that too is just from me smacking the opponent. So we've already talked about maybe making this part just a little thicker to make it a little stronger, and making these a little thinner to kind of compensate to keep the weight the same without making it too much heavier. But yeah, that is going to be it for this recap of Sin City Street Fights and Offbeat's 2022 season. There's a real possibility kind of in the talks right now that I may go to January Norwalk. A lot of things I got to figure out before I do that with a wood floor version of Offbeat, which would basically be the same Offbeat but with metal plates for its wheels. And what else? Yeah. I want to just huge shout out to everyone in the combat robotics community for being super welcoming and helpful and letting me fight with you guys. Robert, obviously, for designing a fantastic robot. Could not have done it without him. And I had to turn the wrench and drive the thing. So, there's scuff marks. I'm just like, every time I look at it, I find a new little nick in it. And I'm pretty sure this frames is going to keep going until it can't go no more. And that just means we're going to print more frames. We obviously have to print more frames if we're going to do Norwalk. Maybe get some more of these, 2023 is looking exciting for Offbeat. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys all in the next one.